Hello and welcome to Fintech Impact. I'm your host, Jason Pereira. Today on the show, we have Aaron Schumm, founder and CEO of Vestwell. Vestwell is a platform that's powering employee savings programs all across America. And with that, here's my interview with Aaron. Aaron, thanks for taking the time today.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Aaron Schumm of Vestwell. Tell us about Vestwell.
Vestwell, we're essentially, think of us as the Intel Inside, if you will, powering savings via the workplace and direct to individuals, but we do it through channel partners. We're really focused on tax-preferred savings vehicles, if you will.
We're talking 401k programs, basically 403bs, you name it, all of those programs. You're basically providing the architecture to do that.
Yeah, 401ks, 403bs, IRAs, college savings, disability savings, emergency savings, student debt refinancing, and student loan repayment. That's all us, kind of the chassis behind the scenes.
Okay, perfect. We'll get into what that Intel Inside chassis behind the scenes does and where it's distributed. But before we do that, talk about the history. How did Vestwell come to be?
Came to be, honestly, through pain I lived personally. And so I co-founded a wealth management platform before this called Folio Dynamics that's owned by Envestnet now. And so in building that business, so I ran revenue for that business. I ran product development and the overall kind of strategy through a lot of it. And when we were building that, we got to a point of scale at 2010, actually, where we had about 30 employees. And we had 30 employees. And at that point, I said, we want a 401k. So we went through that process. An advisor friend came in, sold us a 401k, and it was so complicated, so clunky, so expensive. I was like, this can't be like this. Like the wealth world, I felt like in wealth tech, for example, there were so many solutions that were being built and applied. And I felt like you're going back in time when it came to the retirement side. So that's what catalyzed this. Now, fast forward, I couldn't do it there. So when we sold that business, I left to actually go solve that problem. And then it's continued to expand, maybe through curiosity and then just connecting the dots with how this landscape actually works and saying, oh, we're going to go fix the 401k side. And I was like, oh, you know what? Payroll deducted IRA is quite similar, right? Let's look at that, right? Oh, college savings, super relatable to that. Let's go fix that, right? So we just continue to expand the aperture of the savings programs that we're able to serve.
Excellent. Okay. So there has to be a better way. All right. So talk to me about how you define the problem and went about going to solve it.
So the problem, when we think about it, is this industry, when you think of, let's just classify workplace savings for now. It's been around for now 50 years, right? 1974 is when ERISA was first enacted. And when you look at that, we've accumulated about $40 trillion in savings over kind of the savings spectrum over those 50 years. But we still haven't touched over half of the working population in the country. And when you think about that, where does that working population actually sit? It's generally within small, mid-sized businesses. So that was the initial problem we wanted to go tackle. It was like, hey, let's go fill this gap, this $40 trillion gap that's currently there, and try to extend the reach by which people are saving. So, and as we're doing that, we said, hey, there's a problem, not only with retirement savings, but education savings, right? The cost of education continues to increase. The cost of healthcare continues to increase, right? Meanwhile, the cost of your computer and your TV and whatnot nosedive, right? But the stuff that we really need to sustain life is getting increasingly expensive. So we're like, if people aren't saving the right way, how do we actually go help them to engage and do that? Drive the cost to serve down, create a confidence in saving across that. So that's what we're trying to solve.
Okay, so that's what you're trying to solve. And you basically created a platform for doing that. So talk to me about, so people are not going to Vestwell and signing up for the programs there. Talk to me about your distribution, and then we're going to talk about, after that, the experience of a user from that standpoint.
Yes. So our distribution largely is it's all through channel partners, largely through the financial services ecosystem and specifically financial advisors. When we think about it, advisors actually are engaged with over 90% of the retirement plans that are out there in the country today. So what we do is actually go to a Morgan Stanley, we go to a Carson Wealth, right? We go to all RIAs, broker-dealers out there in the country, and we equip them with the means and the ability to engage with their clients in hyperscale at a cost where essentially they're in the game without any overhead and still growing their business at a pace that they would never be able to grow if they were just to knock on doors with some legacy piece of technology and the cost to serve that it would take to actually deploy that. So that's largely what we do. So we're going through financial institutions. Similarly, state governments have gotten very active in the space because they're also broke from a Treasury Department standpoint. And they're looking at this saying, listen, this is not sustainable. So how are we going to help get people saving, right? 529s came first, then able disability programs, now IRA programs, and we're powering those across the states. And those actually intersect nicely with the financial services world. So we run 35 different state programs. And then lastly is payroll, because you need payroll data, right, to come into your savings account before it gets taxed and goes to your bank account. So we integrated with about 100 payroll partners. Some of those are more significant partners than others. We're basically sitting at the center of those kind of three vectors, if you will.
Okay. So basically you got all three to the table effectively to make this jointed, broken experience nice and seamless, hopefully. So, okay. So talk to me about, we're going to talk about the experience from the consumer standpoint. Let's actually start from the company, from the sponsor standpoint. I want to set up a program for my client base. I've gone to my RIA or whoever else it is to basically get it done. They are a user of Vest. Talk to me about what it looks like when I am setting it up.
Yeah, so there's several ways in which it's done, but let me give you the base case scenario. So financial advisor, it has a private wealth client. That private wealth client runs a business. That private wealth client says, hey, I need a 401k for my employees. What can you do? What they would typically do is take it somewhere else, right? They would take it to XYZ insurance provider or someone else, right? That was somewhat conflicted, right? Because that insurance provider, they want to offer some expensive product, right? That fulfills their P&L, and they want that client themselves, right? They don't really want the advisor engaged. We turned that kind of notion on its head and said, no, we want the advisor engaged. It's the advisor's client, right? It's the advisor's opportunity to continue to engage and grow their client base, be it the private wealth client that already exists or other people that work within the firm. So when they come in, the advisor has the ability to either work with us or create a proposal for themselves, for the client. And then once the sponsor says, yes, I want to do this, then it basically goes to an implementation manager at Vestwell that helps onboard them. We verify that they know what they're signing up for, that the plan provisions are the way that they want to construct it. We try to explain it in a way that makes common sense for people, because this is the vernacular acronyms that get thrown around this space quickly. People glaze over and they're like, I have no idea what I'm doing.
And rightly, yeah.
Yeah. So we try to distill it in plain English. Or Spanish now too as well, and walk through that process. And then they onboard, we link up payroll, we link up their employees, and then we automate all of the stuff that is usually bogged down in a bunch of paperwork, right? So like employee notifications, blackout periods, and enrollment, and all of that stuff we're able to do digitally through the platform.
Excellent. Okay. So basically they get that all set up through your platform. Let's talk about the actual end user. So I am a member of this plan. I just started the company and now qualify. What does my experience look like?
Yeah, so the experience is, so they get a welcome email. They come into the platform. We verify it's them. If there's multiple savings programs, so if you have a 401k and let's say an emergency savings or college savings, those are actually all shown together. There are opportunities for personalized kind of education across the employer base and all the employees. But basically we say, okay, how much do you want to contribute? How much can you contribute? But we try to use some logic, and we're enhancing a lot of this stuff constantly and thinking about, okay, how should people be saving? What would be whether a benchmark or whatever it may be, is it auto-enrolled? Is it not, right? How do you get them actually to feel confident in the decision? And then they start to choose. So if you say, okay, I'm going to contribute X percent or $100 a paycheck into my 401k, then let's go choose the investments. And the investments, it's fully open architecture, right? So the advisor, the home office of the firm we work with chooses how the investments look like. It could be specific ETF or mutual fund lineups. It could be a personalized investing / managed account structure. It could be just target dates, whatever they want to offer, we make available to them. And then they start to choose how they want to invest. And then they're able to see that continue to grow over the course of their employment across the firm.
Excellent.
And it's all brand new, right? It's all mobile. It looks good. It feels good. It's how we engage in today's world.
Yeah. So you moved on. You basically tackled it with an entire modern experience is essentially what you're doing.
Yes. And then collapse the stack, right? And I don't want to go down rabbit holes of sub-accounting, but that's the core of what we do, right? It's money in and it's money out and a sub-accounting ledger.
I think one of the things that comes to mind is when you were developing this, you must have worked with some employers. You must have said, okay, let's pilot this. Let's try this out. I'm curious as to how their input guided your decision making. Like, where did you basically get taken on a turn that you didn't expect to go down initially that you proved to be core to what you were doing?
Oh, yeah. I'll tell you that one of the main ones, when I first wanted to create this, I did not think we had to build the sub accounting record keeping legend.
Hmm.
I thought we could leverage something that was out there, reshape the experience around it, and that would be enough. And so we actually worked with a Relias structure underneath when we started the business. And we reshaped the experience and it worked well, right? Until it didn't. And then it was so hard to fix it. And we're like, this just is not scalable. Like it shouldn't be this hard. For example, we work with a lot of what's called smaller businesses.
Uh-huh.
And in a smaller business, there's no HR person. Maybe there's an HR person, but oftentimes there's not. And if you think about that, they're uploading payroll, they onboard a client or an employer or employee rather, or they terminate an employee and they forget to put in their termination, or they fat finger a birthday or whatever. And to unwind that out of a legacy system is a nightmare. And it's you're out of market for weeks. You have all of these compliance regulatory components that start to snowball. So finally, we just said, you know what, forget it. We got to build this ourselves. And we built it through the lens of being able to continue to grow with people and also continue to be able to support larger businesses. And that comes with a lot of thought and a lot of process put behind it. But that's ultimately what drove us to that decision. We're like, we have to control it because we want to make sure we're able to delight the end user with the experience. And if it takes someone, 2 weeks to take out a loan because their mother passed away and they have to pay for a funeral, that's just not acceptable.
No.
So how do we actually help reshape this in a way that gives people that immediate kind of solution in how modern infrastructure should work today?
What a big surprise. Old legacy money movement systems sucked. Like it's, the second you said, those legacy systems and someone fat fingers something. Yeah, it's almost as if those things chiseled them in stone. It was incredible.
Right, right. And payroll systems, oddly, are not far off from the financial
it is
system.
archaic.
Right?
The number, not going to fully name names, but people can assume the bigger, more well-known historical players on this are some of the most painful ones to deal with, quite honestly.
Yeah,
So
and it's hard. It's hard, right? And I get it. I get how they got to where they are. But we looked at this and said, listen, it's time for a change. And a lot of people have tried to do what we do. And for a bunch of reasons, they haven't been able to successfully deliver it. And it took us a long time. If we tried to do where we are today, if we tried to go build this from scratch out of the gate, candidly, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you right now. We never would have got to this point. We would have burned up cash. We would have not known too many things. We would have stepped on a landmine and the whole thing would have poof. So we had to be pretty methodical with how we were thinking about it and stepping into that kind of where we wanted to go with the business.
excellent. No surprise you ran into legacy bottlenecks, especially in this system. Okay, so give me the user feedback. Once you nailed this thing down, enterprises that had to migrate from old systems to new, what are you hearing?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? And everyone has a different play, right? And obviously we're upending legacy systems and ultimately legacy providers in a lot of ways and working with those legacy providers. But we're also, because we're dealing with institutions on the other side that we're empowering for this, that has its own pain that it brings, right? Because these large institutions don't move at a rapid pace. And there's a lot of reasons why, as we all know. So we have to work with that, right? And that creates a lot of patience. But the end user, right, everyone has a different view because we're catering with not only the financial advisor, right? We have to create a user persona and a user experience around that. We have the home office of that advisory firm, right? And they need their reporting and engagement statistics and whatnot. And then we have a lot of TPAs, third-party administrators, that actually come in and use our platform on behalf of the employers. Mm-hmm. Then we have asset managers coming in, right? Then we have employers coming in, and then end savers coming, right? So you're dealing with there's a lot of people coming in that have different things they need. So we're catering to a lot, which is exhausting, but we understand this is the business we're in. So I think overall, people love what we're able to do. I think we always have to do better though, right? And we're always raising the bar, right? Whether it's sanitizing payroll data in a faster manner, whether it's right now we're actually just about to deploy a brand new digital onboarding experience for an employer that an advisor can walk through with their client on. So, and there's things that we had to do that we're like, oh yeah, this is not the experience we should be creating right now. We can do better than this. So we just said, let's change it. And back to the point I made where we end up controlling it all. It's, hey, this is our world to actually own and control. And let's make sure we're delighting. I think end users love it, but it's complicated, right? We're dealing, a lot of people, candidly, like they don't know what a 401k is. There are a lot of people who think a 401k is like their bank account. And they're like, hey, I need to get my money out for whatever. It doesn't really work like that. But so it's a lot of education. So we're spending more and more time around education, around what I'll call financial wellness and like the early innings of planning for an individual. But it's great. I think it's also very powerful because we're now going to start bringing like an able disability program into the workplace or a 529 college savings program into the workplace. And because that's really what the end user needs, the end saver. They're like,
especially if you think about the friction, just having to flow through someone's bank account and then other expenses get in the way, the entire, making it disappear before it hits your bank account behavior is incredibly powerful, right? The automatic escalation, Save More Tomorrow programs prove that.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I talk to Shlomo a lot, right? And I love him and the ideas he's able to come up with and what we're, able to work together and partner on. And those things are powerful, right? But it's a continued education aspect around it. So we actually built our own in-house AI solution that can answer a lot of these questions that people have. And now we're starting to get to a hyper personal level where, because we have all the information on someone, so they come in, we know where they live, when they get paid, how they get paid, the industry they're in, so on. And we can we'll be able to start educating them on intelligent saving solutions that they should be thinking about. Right. And how, if you think about, I'll use Toast, for example. If you're familiar with Toast, you go to a coffee shop or a restaurant and you pay at that point of purchase a solution. We're the Toast 401k solution for all their food and beverage clients. But you think of a Toast employee or an employee of that restaurant or that coffee shop or whatnot, there are times when maybe they shouldn't be in a 401k. They should probably be like in an IRA and an HSA. Where we're going with this is we want to be able to educate people on how to best save by meeting them where they are based on who they are, instead of just forcing them into a savings bucket and say, that's better than nothing, which it is better than nothing, but there could be better ways to do it for them.
Okay, excellent. I think frankly, the entire idea to be able to not just default set up the account, but also provide some semblance of coaching is the appropriateness of when that should happen. Fantastic.
Yeah, there's a lot of work we need to do, right? There's still a massive hole and we're in the early innings, but I feel like now we're there, right? Like you can see it playing out. It's all coming together for us. I think the industry's behind it. The folks down at Capitol Hill are behind it. And they're just like, how far can we take this thing right now?
Excellent. Okay. So we're in a massive hole getting behind it. So where do you see the platform going from here?
Like I said, I think we're in the early innings. Like we still have, I would say 99 million people. We got over 1 million on the platform now actively saving. There's probably there's about 100 million people in the country that are not saving effectively. And I think there is an endless room to grow, if you will, in that space. And I think we are in a position where we can be the engine behind everyone in a non-obstructive, kind of unconflicted way, right? We're not manufacturing product. We're not stepping in and trying to become the advisor and elbow out the advisor. We're not trying to elbow out whoever else is on the other side. We're like, no, we want to actually all work together and drive impact. And by doing so, we're going to start alleviating some of the economic pressures that are put in the country. And it's going to take a long time. We're playing the long game. We set up this business to be sustainable and run on its own for forever. And we have the capital running through profitability soon and all of these things. Now it's okay, let's just make sure that we're setting this up for everyone else who's going to need it.
Excellent. Yeah, a noble effort in the end. At the end of the day, anything can help people prepare for the financial future. It's a positive. So before we end up the podcast, I have 3 questions I ask you to end on a positive note. And the first one is, if you had one wish for something you can change in your company, the industry as a whole, what would it be?
I would wish I could build all of this tomorrow. That would be my wish. If we could build what we have, even on our roadmap tomorrow, we would just accelerate the impact we're going to have. I'm not known for my patience as an individual. So you have to rewire your brain to be patient, to be like, we're going to get there. We just got to step through it little by little and make it happen, but we'll get there.
Code takes longer than you think it does every time.
Always.
You're one of those guys who, like me, would say, oh, that looks like a simple fix. And the developers like pulling their hair out. And no, it's not. So second question I have for you, what's been the biggest challenge in the company to where it is today?
Biggest challenge, I would say that there's multiple facets to that. I think the biggest challenge was gaining the credibility we needed out of the gate. And that could be from the advisor base. It could be from the employer base. It could be from the investor base. A lot of people had no idea what we did for years. Some of that was by design, but they would look at us like, I don't really know how to think about Vestwell. And it's a lot of like educating, because most people don't think about record keeping or sub accounting. You're just like, it's just this thing that happens in the background. But I was like, this is the thing that actually makes it all work. So I think that's probably the bit of challenge. But now we're obviously past that, but it was tough.
When you're changing the model for something, you have an education barrier to exceed. So it's not surprising. And the last question I have for you is, what excites you the most about what it is you're working on and keeps you getting out of bed to fight the good fight in the morning?
Yeah. So I love what we do because every person that uses this platform, that comes in and touches it, is better with us than without us. Mm-hmm. And that's a fun thing, right? That is like you're having a positive impact on millions of people. That's what keeps me motivated is, hey, we're only here on this planet for a short period of time. How can we create a better future for everyone else that's going to be behind us? And to me, that's what drives me as an individual. I think my wife's in the life science, biotech, healthcare world and looking at generational outcomes. And I'm like, okay, if you're going to make people live longer, how are they going to afford this? So I look at us as like that side of the affording equation.
Excellent. It's nice. It's legitimately a nice position to be in when you're like, anyone gets in the platform is going to be better off. Like there's a lot of, it depends out there, but frankly, I think it legitimately makes sense in your case.
It does, but people have to be motivated to do it.
Even if they set their savings levels at the bare minimum, right? Like at the end of the day, like you're nudging people to do the thing that it's going to be in their best interest. Hard to say that is in any way, shape, or form doing anything other than contributing to their welfare. So well done.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Aaron. Very much appreciate your time.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
So that was Aaron Schumm of Vestwell. Hope you enjoyed that. And if you are in the US looking for a platform to power your retirement plans, by all means, take a look. As always, if you enjoyed this podcast, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Spotify, or see your podcast. Until next time, take care.
This podcast was brought to you by Woodgate Financial, an award-winning financial planning firm catering to high net worth individuals and their families. To learn more, go to woodgate.com. You can subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play, or find more episodes at jasonpereira.ca.